Sports Lab Overtime. I'm Justin Baxley, joined by Manuel Oper and Lauren McGill. We're in a new era of Florida Gator football. Jon Sumrall is the new coach of the Florida Gators. In fact, within the last few minutes, they've dropped the official graphic and all that kind of stuff on the Florida Gator Twitter. We've got new quotes out from the athletic director, Scott Strickland, and as well as the new head coach, Jon Sumrall. Interesting quote we got here from Mr. Scott Strickland. Jon Sumrall is a proven winner and an exceptional leader who has built successful programs at every stop. He brings a tremendous energy and strong recruiting relationship across our footprint and philosophy rooted in toughness, discipline, player development. He'll cultivate a daily culture of competitiveness, accountability, and winning that drives success. Not many coaches win big at two different non-power programs, and even fewer do it as quickly as Jon has. He joins the rare company, coaches like Urban Meyer, Brian Kelly, Willie Fritz, who delivered immediate success at multiple stops. Jon's track record of rapid turnaround speaks directly to his leadership and the culture he establishes. Jon Sumrall says the University of Florida is one of the premier programs in college football. It's an incredible honor to serve as the head coach. I believe in building a team rooted in toughness, accountability, and a relentless competitive spirit. Florida has everything necessary to compete at the highest level, the resources, the support, the tradition, and the passion of Gator Nation. One of the first priorities will be to assemble an incredible staff, including an offensive coordinator who understands that at Florida, having an explosive offense isn't optional. It's mandatory. Interesting to hear that. I think that we're all probably excited on at least the prospect of an explosive offense again. But I want to start with pro. Lauren, this is for you. A couple months ago, I had you here in the Sports Lab. I asked you, what do you want to see from the next head coach? And you told me, passion. That was you said you're tired of seeing Billy on the sidelines showing no emotion. I sent a video the other night to our social group chat of Jon Sumrall. I thought he was going to body slam that poor guy that had been charged with trying to hold him back off the field over a face mask call. He said it was a face mask. Dude was about to fight somebody. In fact, last night during their game against Charlotte, a player gets hurt. He makes sure the kid's fine and then immediately starts working the refs, screaming about, hey, why don't you get that guy out of this game? He's targeting my players. He's jumping. Jon Sumrall, we'll get to some cons. We're going to do a little game, pros and cons. Lauren, hearing about some of his passionate, I don't want to call them antics, but for the sake of argument, we'll call it antics. His passionate demeanor on the sidelines, his ability to jump in players' faces, a guy that's not afraid to showcase emotion on the field. How does that land with you as the next head coach of the Florida Gators?
That looks great. I appreciate the passion that it seems like he can bring to the program for the first time in 4 years, considering we have not had that in 4 years. Billy Napier kind of just looked like he had just woken up every single second of every single game for the last 4 years. Sumrall, I can appreciate that he doesn't seem like he will do that, considering he looks like he's willing to fight someone. I did say that. I said, I want you to look like you're about to get thrown out of the game. I want you to look like you're going to war for your players. It seems like he's willing to do that, and I can respect that as a pro for him being hired.
Yeah. Manuel?
Yeah, I don't know. Because I think passion is a good thing. I think passion can translate to a lot of good things. But I don't think passion and necessarily getting mad and showing your emotion on the football field, on the sidelines, is going to translate to wins. And the wins is what this Gator program is desperate for right now. I think that it's going to definitely add a different, part to this team and this program, being that Billy Napier was the complete opposite the past 4 years. I think it's going to spin things in a different direction, but I don't know if that direction is going to translate into the Gators getting more wins.
Well, sorry. It's not so much that the passion brings the win, 100%. It's not like, oh, he's getting hot and heavy. That must mean we're going to win this game. It's not that. It's just you see the passion that your coach has. It almost translates to the team and the rest of their emotion. When you see your coach getting emotional and your coach getting upset and fired up, like it kind of translates to that team to make them want to play harder too, and then that can result in the win. It's not like all of a sudden 2 and 2 equal 4. It's like you gotta, get some fractions in there a little bit too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree that can make your players get more, energized in the game as well. I think what I was more so saying is that if I'm ranking it as a pro, I don't know how far up on the list I rank it as a pro. I think it's something that's good. I think it's something that's exciting to see, especially from a fan perspective. But I just don't know how effective it's going to translate on the football field.
I think it's more of what you've gotten accustomed to on the sidelines versus what you will be getting out of Jon Sumrall. The other clip that's been going around, and Kentucky's been using it quite a bit because they wanted this guy to be their head coach, is he looked at all his players. He said, if you need juice tonight, you come to me, I'll give you juice. I will get you ready for this game. If you're feeling like you're weak, if you're feeling like you can't go anymore, come to me and I'll give you what I got. I like that. I got fired up for it. I wanted to go out there and hit somebody for this guy. And I think as a fan, it may not fix everything, but I think a demeanor change is the first thing you can kind of point to and go, it's different than Billy Napier.
Right.
Now I'm going to get to a con. That kind of makes it look like it is the next Billy Napier. He is another group of 5 coach. We were told that it's going to be an elite hire, that it was going to be somebody that had won conference championships. And look, this guy's technically done that, but it's the Sun Belt, same thing that Billy Napier had done. And I think that there are a lot of fans that are feeling hurt today, angry, apathetic. I think is a really good word. I think there's a lot of people feeling some apathy towards this hire. Here's where I land on it, and I'll let you guys, I want to hear your thoughts on it. I think Jon Sumrall was the number 1 choice at Auburn. I think he was the number 1 choice at Ole Miss if Lane Kiffin left, which he's going to do. I think he was the number 2 option at LSU if Lane Kiffin turned them down. I think there's an argument to be made that Jon Sumrall was the number 1 guy in the coaching search after Lane Kiffin this cycle. And I think you could have sold him as the head coach to every single fan base that has an opening right now, except one, and it's the Florida Gators. And the reason I think that is because they had just come out of the same group of 5 experiment, the young up-and-coming coach, the guy that has done well at these stops, but hasn't done it against this level of competition, hasn't done it in the SEC. I think you could have sold it to every program but this fan base is the one that I have trouble believing that you could sell it. In addition to that, we heard very early on in the search from Zach Albaverdi and some other folks that Eli Drinkwitz was taken off the table because of the vitriol from the fan base, that they thought it would create blowback. And then they go hire a group of 5 guy. It just doesn't make sense to me how he wasn't one of the people that you immediately took off your board the moment you were worried about what fan reaction was going to be. Manuel, what are your thoughts on going back to the group of 5 and some of the language that has kind of been thrown out there about guys like Eli Drinkwitz being too much for the fan base, but then you hire a guy that maybe angers the fan base even more?
Yeah, I think I have a unique take on this because I'm at a place to where I don't think you need a big name guy to change your program and to get yourself to win in this era of college football. I think everybody was big on the big name of Lane Kiffin, but I don't think Lane Kiffin was just game changer of a coach. I think he was a very solid coach, but Lane Kiffin also has his cons. He has came to the swamp and dropped games against the Gators that has pushed him out of the playoffs, even though he has had talent in the past with Jackson Dart, who is a NFL talent at this moment. So Lane Kiffin has also done stuff to where he has had, blemishes on his resume. But I look at coaches like Marcus Freeman. He's a coach at Notre Dame who's having big success. He wasn't somebody who came and had success at a big SEC school. He was within the Notre Dame program, came up and, got that head coaching job because of the departure of their previous coach. Also look at Michigan with Moore. He's a coach that came up through that program as well. He wasn't a big-name SEC coach that had to run through a gauntlet to prove himself as a head coach. And then I look at this situation with the Florida Gators. I think Sumrall is in a position to where he can still have success. I think this is an era of college football where the transfer portal is so unique and changes everything. And I think this can allow him and Group of 5 coaches and just coaches overall to have success without needing to necessarily go out and prove it against other big SEC schools.
Lauren?
So, Florida beat Tulane last year. I'll start with that. What?
Well, so I'll give you that, but they had like 38 people sitting out for Tulane, and the fact that Tulane made that a game is a problem.
Yeah. But, like, the fact is that they, like, beat them under some mobility. And I will say that the American Conference is more competitive. Like, you're seeing teams like USF and Memphis and Tulane put up big numbers in games. In North Texas, all of those teams do really well, but it's in that conference. Yes, he looks good in that one, and he is a competitive coach, but it's like, the thing for me is just, I can't even be mad at the guy. I'm more mad at Scott Strickland. Like, Jon Sumrall, as a coach, as a person, I can put myself in his shoes and be like, you know what? This is a great opportunity. Florida's a great place to coach, just the same as anyone else would. It's not his fault that Strickland decided that he's going to put himself before the rest of the Florida program. It's not his fault that Lane Kiffin was not, kissing the rings on Strickland's hand and making him, feel okay and safe. But then letting Jon Sumrall come and take this position, obviously he's going to do it. He's going to leave Tulane. He's going to leave his G5. He's going to leave that conference. Every other coach is doing it. Alex Golesh is doing it. Everyone's going to Arkansas, Auburn, Oklahoma State. Everyone's leaving to go to the better school. That's what you're going to do as a coach. A better position is open. You go take it. And I also understand that he was like the number 1, number 2, which is what I've been like thinking of him as. Like, if you can't have Lane Kiffin, he's the number 1, number 2 for all of these other schools, whatever. And we're the ones who got him. Cool. And I would also acknowledge that, like, one of the big pros that I saw is that, like, $7.5 million, that's nothing. That's nothing for a coach in the SEC. That's like we were talking about earlier. It's like, that's not a lot of money compared to what everyone else is getting, compared to what, they had to buy out Brian Kelly for, compared to what they're giving Lane Kiffin at LSU. Like, it's a good deal. I'm really not even mad at the coach. I kind of like have, this goes completely against everything that I felt in the last 24 hours, but I have a little bit of ambition just like as a fan and as a student for 2 more weeks. But like, I do feel a little bit of ambition for what he can do with this program. It's just the fact that I can't fully blame him. I blame Scott Strickland. I don't blame the coach. Yeah. It's like, sorry, I was going to say one more thing. It's like blaming the kid when they mess up because their coach told them to do exactly that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I like where this conversation's headed because I wanted to hit on my next pro. And I do think you're right. I think that's $7.5 million. The number we kept getting on Lane Kiffin, the sources that were telling, I think Kevin Winter put this out there on the Sports Lab 2 weeks ago or probably last week too. $14.6 million was the offer to Lane Kiffin from Florida. And I think that the number from the national folks said around $13 million. I think he's getting 12 from LSU with some incentive vouchers to probably get up to that 13, 14 mark. But Florida offered a very competitive package and then pulled out on Friday from the Lane Kiffin race for whatever reason. That we may never know why they pulled out of that race. Hopefully we get some postmortem on that. Hopefully somebody eventually can shed light. Obviously we've seen a lot of the fan base rumors on that, what people think happened behind the scenes, and there's been spaces and voice memos and things of that nature. And we won't get into those things right now, but they're out there. You can find them and make your own heads or tails over that. But you end up with a coach at $7.5 million. I think there's an argument made, one, that some of that money is going to go away in general because people got the money up for Lane Kiffin. That does not mean that same money exists for Jon Sumrall, truthfully speaking. There will be some folks who take their money back and say, I want to see him do something first before I'm willing to give money back to the program. There will be people that exist in that way. But $7.5 million is a good deal, especially he says he's going to be aggressive in going and getting, he says it's going to be mandatory to get an explosive offensive coordinator. I think he's going to bring in good defensive coordinators because, look, he's a defensive guy. They last night, they shut out Charlotte 27-0. That's not an explosive offense, let me tell you. So he's going to have to bring somebody new in on that offensive side to make some people feel comfortable. But when you only give up $7.5 million as the base salary for your coach with some things tied to the college football playoff, it does allow you to make that pool for the staff much larger. And so I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the pro of the amount of money to potentially go out and hire some really top-notch coordinators. Some of the names we're hearing that I've seen reported on 247, on 3, and some places as far as hot boards for coordinators. Cade Bell, Kerwin Bell's son, who's the offensive coordinator up at Pittsburgh. They average probably 30, 40 points a game. They throw down up there at Pittsburgh. He's a Gainesville native. He's from Gainesville, lived here for a very long time, 32 years old. He's up-and-comer. And then on the defensive side, the name that keeps popping up, and maybe this is a pipe dream times a million, is Blake Baker, the defensive coordinator at LSU, who should be in line for a head coaching position somewhere. He's that good. And it may be Tulane that starts looking at Blake Baker and say, hey, man, you can go be the defensive coordinator at Florida, or you can come be the next head coach at Tulane. He's that kind of hot commodity on the defensive side of the ball. Some of the other ones, I saw Buster Faulkner, who is the Georgia Tech offensive coordinator. But before that, he was an offensive analyst for the University of Georgia during I believe it was the Todd Monken years. So, Manuel, what are your thoughts on the potential pool of money potentially being able to kind of go towards a bigger named coordinator on either the offensive, defensive side of the ball or on both? Especially hearing the comments we got today from Jon Sumrall saying it's mandatory that he gets a explosive offensive coordinator.
Well, I think it's definitely a pro. You know, it might be the biggest pro in this whole situation for the Gators. You get to spend the money elsewhere. Lane Kiffin was going to come here, and he was going to take all the money that he could, and I don't blame him for doing so. I would do the same. But you get to spend your money elsewhere, and I think it is going to boil down to what type of staff you can build. I think that was always going to be the case with the Gators. Even whenever they had success this year, they had success on defense, but the offensive coordinator position, the play calling with Billy Napier wasn't working well. There was just disconnects within the team that needed to be corrected on the coaching side. You get a chance to rebuild and do this now. You're at a point where your team is at a kind of all-time low. I don't know if I want to say it's the worst season ever, but it's definitely a down point for the season. But the good thing about that is you get to build in your own direction from here. And I think some of the names you threw out there were very good. I think getting LSU's defensive coordinator would be a upgrade for the Gators. Whenever I think about the Georgia Tech situation, trying to get their OC, I don't know if that's a great fit for the Gators. You know, they kind of run a triple option style type of offense. They like to run the ball a lot. I don't know if that fits the Gator Nation's, dream outlook for the offense, but I think this is a situation where the Gators can take advantage of that extra money that they have on the table.
I think that if there's any extra money, it should be going to NIL, to be honest. I was trying to find how much money they planned on giving Jon Sumrall on NIL. I know that the number was roughly around $20 million for Lane Kiffin if he came here. Same thing with at LSU. If there's extra money and they're we don't want to give all of it to Sumrall until he proves himself, I can understand that. But let's put it into NIL then, because we don't know how recruits are going to react to Jon Sumrall being the new head coach. And that's always a really big thing that you have to think about is what's this recruit going to do? If they're between LSU or Florida, why? I mean, you know what Kiffin does in the SEC. You know what Kiffin does with programs. You don't know what Jon Sumrall is going to do in the SEC. You don't know what defensive coordinator he's going to get yet. You don't know what offensive coordinator he's going to get yet. And now that he's hired, it's going to start the clock of if they're going to stay or not. And then you have to think about Florida's, own roster. What are they going to want to do? What are they going to, do they leave and go somewhere else? Do they go try out a new coach? Do they follow, a coordinator that they liked? It's just, you have to think about an NIL side too.
Well, I think that's the thing, though. If you're worried about them following a coordinator, you got to make sure you get a guy in here on both sides of that ball. It goes beyond Summerall. You got to think last night, Jaden Ball, what a guy, by the way, ran for 200-something yards, and one of the first things out of his mouth was how much he loved Jabbar Jalouk. If I'm Jon Sumrall, he's my running back coach. Mm-hmm. Whatever I have to do, I'll lock him down. He's my running back coach. Billy G, I find him a place on that staff. Whatever I have to do, I'm retaining those two guys. Because Jaden Ball did enough last night that if that guy wants him to be his running back coach, you make it possible. You do whatever you have to do to keep that kid happy. Because he looks like the next coming of Emmitt Smith at this level. That's the kind of talent that you have. He did things last night that we haven't seen at the University of Florida since Emmitt Smith. That's the kind of player you have on this roster. If he wants Jabbar Jaluk to stay, you find a way to make it happen. And then you have to look at your offensive coordinator, and you've got to find a guy that you trust to rebuild and fix DJ Lagway if you decide to go forward with him. If you decide you're going to move on from DJ Lagway and go with a different quarterback, you need to get a guy that could either bring a guy in that he's been working with, similar to what Scolish does with Byron Brown over at going to Auburn. Perhaps Cade Bell brings down one of those Pittsburgh quarterbacks they have. They got a couple decent ones on that roster. There's going to be a lot of changing in terms of the portal. You start looking at all these jobs that have come open. Deuce Knight looked really good a couple weeks ago for Auburn. Now, if Alex Golish brings along Byron Brown, is Deuce Knight somebody that becomes an option? He's a former five-star quarterback, put up 5 or 6 touchdowns by himself for Auburn in the game against Mercer. But more than that, he's just an incredible athlete. There are going to be some guys in the portal that if you get the right coordinator, you can bring them in. Even if the NIL money isn't, you've still got to have a good NIL program. But Florida already has that. What they haven't had necessarily has been a good staff. That was the thing, right? Billy Napier needed an offensive coordinator. He didn't get an offensive coordinator for whatever reason. He couldn't lure away the offensive coordinator for Ole Miss, and then he didn't try to go get anybody else. But that's a different story. But at the end of the day, I think it was Rob Rousseau a couple weeks ago dropped a video that said we need to move on from pretty much everybody on the staff because Billy Napier was a B- player at head coach, but he brought a bunch of C+ talent at coordinator positions, and we need to move on from him. I think it's imperative that if you are getting Jon Sumrall and you think maybe he's a B+ or an A coach, not an A+ like Lane Kiffin, that's the grade you're kind of going with, you've got to make sure you get A+ coordinators or at least A coordinators to come in behind him because I think NIL will make a difference. I think you're going to have to pay some players to stick around, but you've also got to get some talented coaches in the room that are going to be up-and-comers, that are going to be guys that should be probably head coach in group of 5 positions to come and say, hey, we're going to pay you a little extra money, making sure we get a Blake Baker or we get somebody that, whether it's Cade Bell, somebody that inspires an offense, because what we've got right now has not been good. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, and I also think that it makes me a little bit more relieved knowing that a coaching hire like offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator or any kind of obviously we want to keep Jabbar Jaluk, we want to keep Coach Gonzalez. Those are 2 guys that we're saying we want to be able to keep as coaches on that sideline. But knowing that Sumrall would be the person who has the say in what goes on his team instead of someone like Scott Strickland who knows nothing, then that makes me feel slightly better because he sees what kind of talent it takes for a team to operate successfully and has before. And I think that he is able to put himself aside enough to know that if he wants to keep players like Jaden Bald, like we were saying, and those coordinators or those coaches on the sideline, he would be able to do that. If it's something that they need, then he will give it to them. When it comes to quarterback-wise, DJ Kinley, I'm okay with that. You did a lot with no, you didn't. You did a lot of bad. You really, but if someone else sees something in him and he's like, I think that I could bring someone in who can make him look like, the 5-star he is again, cool. We can try it out. If not, hopefully Trammell doesn't transfer. Otherwise, bring someone in. Am I wrong?
No, I just think it may be one of those things. I think one of those guys is probably gone.
Then let it be DJ.
I think it may not be DJ.
My take on it is that I definitely think that the coaching staff matters. I don't think talent has been a problem here at UF. It's always been about, whenever you go to coaching is about making the best of what you have. And you have to have the right people in the right positions and to be able to do that. And I think that Florida doesn't have a talent problem. I think people are kind of going to want to come to Florida regardless. I think you have to, spend money in NIL regardless. That's going to happen. That's the day and age that we live in college football. But I think people who live in Florida do want to have that experience of playing for the Florida Gators. Speaking on the DJ situation, I think the scariest thing that could happen for the Gators is if DJ goes to another school, he transfers, and he has this breakout Heisman season next season. I've always said that DJ Lagway's best season is more than likely going to come in his third season. He's had to battle through a lot of injuries. He's had to come into seasons whenever he didn't really have the mindset coming into he had to take over for Graham Mertz last season. And this season, he's had to deal with injuries. And I just think going into his third season, having these years of development, having these years of playing against SEC defenses is going to play a huge role. And, I mean, DJ Lagway is just an excellent talent. He has a good arm. It's just about him developing as a player. And I think going into year 3, we're going to really see the best of DJ Lagway.
Okay. Wait, sorry. One more thing on DJ. Yes, he's talented. He's got a great arm, but his field ability sucks. He can't do that to save his life nor save a game. That's my biggest thing on him is only so much coaching can fix that. You can bring a guy in to try to coach him on how to do his literal job better. That's really all you have to do is throw the ball and aim it correctly. And he can't read the field to save anything, to save his life, to save the Gators, to save the game. You see Jaden Ball here literally busting his butt every single game to make sure that the game tries to go his way. He has to pick up every amount of slack that DJ Lagway is giving him, and he does it successfully. It's just so hard seeing him go out there and do this when DJ does not seem to be making any sort of effort to try to get better in that leadership aspect of reading the field and trying to find a guy open. And you know what? There's only so many times when they are and when they aren't. And then you try to take yourself and boom, he's knocked down. So yes, he's got a great arm. He is a talented quarterback, 100%. It's not that his talent has all of a sudden gone away. It's that it's being overshadowed by the amount of harm that he's brought the program in turn.
Yeah, I think making reads at the defense comes with development. I think that comes down to development and being able to see those same schemes thrown against you each week. You get a chance to make the reads better as the weeks go on. And I think another thing is DJ Lagway also has had to deal with bad play calling. I mean, that's what the Gator fan base has been saying throughout these past, 2-3 years with Billy Napier, that the play calling hasn't been the best. Maybe that has had an effect on DJ Lagway and his playing ability and making the reads that he wants to make. Maybe he doesn't fit comfortably in the offense that Billy Napier wanted to run these past few years. If DJ Lagway is a great talent, and if we can all agree on that, then maybe just put him in the best position to make his talent show the most.
Here's what I'll throw out there on that. There's a guy named Justin Fields who at Ohio State, what they did for him was basically they simplified the offense. They made it where he didn't have to read but one portion of the field at a time. They simplified the reads, allowed his athleticism, and that took them to a national championship game appearance, right? You see Justin Fields in the NFL, the reason he struggles is because he can't read a defense. Lauren, you're spot on. But at the college level, you can do things as an offensive coordinator, an offensive mind, to scheme up things, to make it easier on your quarterback to dissect defenses. You just can't. There are guys that are far less talented than DJ Lagway carving up defenses every week because they've got an offensive coordinator that knows how to scheme up things, get guys open, and the quarterback doesn't have to necessarily do as much. That's where I think if you make the right offensive coordinator hire, you make the right quarterback coach hire, there is a very good chance that you can see a revival from DJ Lagway. I think it's really going to come down to, can they simplify the game enough for him to be able to be the top tier talent that I think that he does have. He has all the physical tools. Lauren, you are spot on. It's up here. It's the mental side of the game, being able to process, read, do all that kind of stuff. Somebody's got to teach him all that. That and footwork. Somebody's got to get his footwork under control because he throws the ball off platform way too much and sometimes unnecessarily so. The J. Michael Sturdivant throw against Georgia that everybody complained about whether to catch or not, it shouldn't have even been a conversation. It should have been a touchdown because DJ Lagway should have set his feet, threw the ball, J. Mike catches it, J. Mike scores. That's it. That's the end of the discussion. Instead, it's 15 yards underthrown because he threw off platform when there was nobody around him that should have made that there was no reason to make that throw off platform. Somebody's got to work on his footwork, and they got to work on helping him read defenses. 100%. Some of that starts with getting the right coaches in the building. I think it doesn't solve everything. It's not the end-all, be-all. You still got to go out and win football games. But I do think it cures a lot of problems that we've seen over the last few years, is if this guy can come in and truthfully build an elite staff. The next, I won't say pro or con on this. It's more of just a fact of life. The schedule next year and the year after is a lot easier for the Florida Gators. So this guy's going to get a chance to go out. I think the first 2 games are against some random school in the Campbell Camels or something. So they're going to have a couple games to get out and try to grab a couple wins right out of the gate. Basically 2 LIU level games, right? Billy Napier this year did not have that luxury whatsoever. His first game was against LIU. The second game was against USF, which should have been a win. But that's still an elite group of 5 school. Then you had to go play LSU on the road and Miami on the road. And then you immediately come back for, was it Texas A&M? Like, the schedule didn't let up. Next year, because of the way that the rotation works out, I do think the schedule's easier, and I think that's going to give Jon Sumrall and hopefully this elite staff that he's developing an opportunity, if they can maintain this recruiting class and add some talent to this recruiting class. And the portal is going to be of utmost importance this cycle. This is going to have to be a team. I think Rob called it Frankensteining together a team. That's what you're going to have to do, because you're going to lose some guys. You're going to have to Frankenstein this team together and try to build out what you can. But the schedule does make it a little bit more conducive. Lauren, what are your thoughts there?
Like I said, when it comes to like Frankenstein and the team, that 100% makes sense, and I am going to be on board with Sumrall until he gives me a reason not to. Again, it's not his fault that he was hired, and he has been relatively, a good coach in the conference that he's been in and what he's done. But I like I said, I blame Scott Strickland. He said that he wanted an elite coach. Apparently, this is the definition of it, coming from a G5, whatever. You want to give us Billy, I won't even say 2.0 yet, 1.5, fine. It's the matter of the fact that he practically lied to the fan base, and then you bring this guy in, and he's going to face all this hate. He's going to feel, the fan base, like we said, is up in arms. But I kind of want to hear what you have to say, because you clearly just read something interesting. No,
sorry. I don't mean to be a distraction here.
That's okay.
The Ole Miss Rebels have hired their next head coach.
Who?
Ooh.
Pete Golding, the guy that's on the staff there, is not going to follow Lane Kiffin. Ooh. He is going to be the next head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. What a wild turn of events. I'm sorry, this coaching cycle, folks, this is the craziest thing I've ever seen. We've had about 8 hires today and 2 additional firings. Since we've started talking in here, 2 additional coaches I think have been fired.
Who?
I think it's Michigan State or something. This whole thing is nuts. So I'm sorry for kind of taking away from your point there, but it immediately popped up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Ole Miss already has its next head coach. It's a guy on the staff.
That's crazy.
But it's not. This whole thing was everybody kept posting that domino gif.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's happening right now. We are seeing an excessive amount of dominoes falling right now. Sorry. I'll let you continue your point now, Lauren.
No, that's okay. I actually want to change it, because now that we've brought up Ole Miss, I want to hear what you Maynell, you have to say about Ole Miss, because I know how I feel about Lane Kiffin choosing LSU, and it's not good whatsoever. What is your take on Lane leaving Ole Miss to go to LSU?
Well, I think it's hard for the players more than anything else, And I also don't like this idea that you have to leave a certain school to have more success than you already have, and especially when we're talking about Ole Miss and LSU. Because LSU, yes, they're a premier program. They've had success in the past. They had a good team in Joe Burrow 5 years ago in 2019. But Ole Miss is having a great season right now. They're 11-1. They're in a playoff position, and you want to leave to go to LSU to put yourself in a position to go to the playoffs. You already have that at Ole Miss. We're in an era of college football where transfer portal changes everything. You don't need to be in a certain state to get certain recruits. You can go anywhere and have success. So as far as Lane Kiffin leaving Ole Miss, I think it's very sad to see for the players, especially when he came out earlier today and said, if you're not going to be on the plane with me in the next 15 minutes, you're not going to be able to coach with me at LSU.
That, to me, is nuts, by
Yeah.
the way. Also, real quick, the last team that LSU hired away their coach was Brian Kelly. Who did they name as their permanent head coach after that? Mr. Marcus Freeman, their defensive coordinator. Ole Miss following the Notre Dame train and doing the exact same thing with Pete Golding, naming their defensive coordinator as the new head coach of the Ole Miss Rebels. Lauren, I do want to hear what is your thoughts, because I have a lot of thoughts on this as well. I'm curious as to kind of where you're going with Mr. Lane Kiffin and his departure from Oxford.
Well, no one was driving that lane train harder than I was. You know, I made pins. I had a shirt. I was 100%, like, I was the biggest advocate. I was the biggest campaigner for Lane Kiffin, not only coming to Florida, but making the right decision. And if when that decision came out that it wasn't going to be Florida, you know, everyone makes mistakes, but, you know, fine. Then again, just stay at Ole Miss then. Oxford has done so much for you. This program has done so much for you, and I'm finding myself eating my words when I said on Sports Lab a couple weeks saying that he had reached his cap at Ole Miss. I was wrong because, I hate that, but he hadn't, because now he's going to he's not. He would have gone to the playoffs. Do I think that they would have won? No. I think that they could have made it past that first one. Fine, whatever. Say they got stuck with Tulane. Okay. Coach to coach, leave and leave, whatever. But either way, I don't think he had reached his cap. I think it was kind of just beginning. It's the first time that Ole Miss has had that many wins in a regular season ever. And that was because of Lane Kiffin. I can only imagine the outrage and probably, like, feeling of what a traitor is this guy to bring us all the way and then just leave. Like, Q and Lacey, like, they are buds. Him and Trinidad, they are buds. Like, they are tight. And knowing that program, he took them so far, and now he's just, like, kind of dropping them, you know? That's awful to me. I feel, and like I said, I was on the Lane train. I campaigned. I wanted him here more than anyone, probably. A lot more than Scott Strickland. And I was going to stop at nothing. But if he wasn't going to come here, then stay at Ole Miss. Because why are you going to go to a program like LSU? Money? Whatever. We have it. Talent? Whatever. We have it. You suck. But it's like going to LSU and then trading up the team that has given you so much. I would have been okay with it if it was Florida, obviously, because there was a lot more reason to come here, in my opinion. But
can I ask, what is that reason that you would rather have him come to Florida and be okay with it? Because he would still be leaving Ole Miss and still strengthening his players, even though he would have a playoff position. So what would be the reason that you would rather him see come to Florida instead of OU?
Well, for one, look at how much LSU has to pay out Brian Kelly. That's a lot of money. And they're doing that, and then, oh, but look, we can still give you all of this. No, the same thing's going to happen with Sumrall, where they're going to try to give him a little bit less money. Like, and also, LSU's program right now with the government, and with the governor being the one who they deal with everything, their president, their athletic director, everything is kind of up in shambles right now. If it would have been, you know, I guess not a month ago, 2 months ago, and that position had come open, I would have said, yeah, LSU is probably the better position. But now it's not. If people want to look at Florida and say, oh, their program is a dumpster fire, it's trash right now, 4-8, who would want to go there? Gross. It's really not, though, when you look at the comparison of what LSU, the state of LSU's program right now, is kind of like a question mark. Versus Florida, you at least know what you're getting when you come here. Versus there, you don't. It's the biggest question mark in coaching that I've seen. You want to get fired, you want to get hired, all of these, like we were just talking about, 8 different things coming out today with all of these coaches, where they're going, where they're leaving, if they're fired, whatever. But versus at LSU, you don't know what you're getting. It's like choosing door number 3 and it's black, and he decided to walk in not knowing what's on the other side. It could be so many different variables that are not laid out for him yet, and he decided to choose it.
Yeah, I guess my point against that would be this. You don't know what you're getting with LSU, but you do know what you're getting with Florida. But the thing is, with Florida, you know that you're getting a program that's not in the best position. He could go to LSU, and he could be in a position where that program is in a great position. Worst case scenario, he opens the door at LSU, and they're at the same level as Florida. I don't think the LSU position could be worse than the Florida position right now.
Here's really where I I think you guys are both right in terms of the Florida job, the LSU job. I think it's more so I don't want to say the personal side of it, right? I think it's easier to sell the move to Florida when you factor out all the family ties here. When you start looking at it, you can say, you know, Layla Kiffin has ties to the University of Florida here. Her dad was a player here. Knox, a massive Florida fan. If you had told somebody that Lane Kiffin had decided to go to Florida because of all the family stuff that went along with it, after he spent weeks, months saying that this decision wasn't going to come down to money or anything along those lines, why did you go to LSU? Because everybody offered you basically the same amount of money, whatever, but at least that's the rumor, right? But like, it doesn't feel like there was any, it's almost like a mercenary type move. He's just going where, sure, he thinks he can win more than anything, right? Like he's going because he thinks he can win there. But I thought, you go back to this past summer, and Ryan McGee put it out the other day that when they made that documentary, The Many Lives of Lane Kiffin, that they genuinely thought he had changed. They genuinely thought that what Lane Kiffin had rebuilt his image in Oxford. And Ryan put out there this past week, he said he outwardly and openly wondered in the documentary if Oxford was the place that he would just spend the rest of his life, because he was done chasing whatever it is, the brass ring, so to speak. He was done chasing all that. That he had found somewhere that him and his family could be happy. And then the way you're leaving that program certainly doesn't feel that way at all. It feels like it was a really nice targeted PR move to showcase a rebuilt image that would allow you to end up at a job like Florida or LSU. And he got the pick of the litter. He got to pick where he wanted to go. He drug this thing out for weeks. Last night, in the middle of the in the middle of the Alabama-Auburn game, the tweet came out from Juice Kiffin, the dog. Do they let dogs into Atlanta where I can go play around on the field at the SEC championship? Again, driving the knife, in my opinion, not just to Keith Carter and the folks over at Ole Miss, but it's also driving it into the souls of the fans that have poured their time and energy and money into this program to help you rebuild when your image was completely tarnished. He was nothing after he got fired on the tarmac at USC. Nick Saban rebuilt him, but even he said, I don't believe you can coach here and coach at FAU at the same time. You're fired. Go ahead and go be the head coach there. What's happening now, what Ole Miss has decided, I think a lot of people are saying Ole Miss should have just let him coach it out, let him have his opportunity to do it. If Nick Saban, the greatest college football coach of all time, doesn't believe that Lane Kiffin can do two jobs at once, and a national championship on the line as an offensive coordinator, do you really think he can do two jobs, head coaching at LSU and at Ole Miss? Probably not. I would rather take my chances with Pete Golding to see if you can rile that group up, similar to what you saw maybe from UCLA after they fired their head coach. You got to see them go out, beat Penn State. Maybe it inspires them. Maybe they say, you know what, we got abandoned by our head coach. Now we have an opportunity to go win playoff games, and maybe they'll go do it. To me, it just screams a move that, I get it. He's going to go win. He's going to be successful at LSU. I really believe that. I think the LSU, despite all of the things that are happening there, you have to come back to the root of it all. Where can you win? You can make the argument that the worst head coach in LSU's last 30 years won a national championship there, or at Orgeron. The only one that really didn't win one was Brian Kelly. But they've won Nick Saban, Les Miles, and Ed Orgeron because the talent there, because they're the only school in the state that's Power 5. They don't have to worry about the same things Florida does. They don't have to worry about Miami. They don't have to worry about Florida State. They don't have to worry about Georgia. They don't have to worry about Auburn and Alabama. They got to get to be their own thing in their state. That's where I get at root cause of it all. Lane Kiffin made a great decision to go to LSU. But from a pure standpoint of the optics of it, it looks really bad today.
Yeah, I think I'm going to first off start by saying this. In my opinion, I don't think Lane Kiffin should have left Ole Miss. I've been saying this like the past few weeks. I think that Lane Kiffin And any coach in this era of college football can win almost anywhere. Obviously not a Group of 5 school. I don't think that's the case scenario. But a school like Ole Miss, you can win there. It's proof in the pudding right now. They're in the playoffs, 11-1. They can make a run at a national championship game if they had Lane Kiffin. Me, however, when I look at his family and his personal, admirations for the UF program, I think whenever you're making a big decision like this, especially a life-changing decision, you have to separate the personal stuff from the professional stuff. And I think Lane Kiffin made a professional decision by saying that LSU gives him the best case scenario to win. Now, I also don't think that, like I said, I don't think he should have left Ole Miss. But being that he went to LSU, being that he didn't stay at Ole Miss, I don't think he made a wrong decision. I would feel the exact same way I feel about him leaving to go to LSU, the same way I would feel about him leaving Ole Miss to come to UF. I think him leaving and abandoning his players will be the same regardless. Regardless if he has personal ties to UF, I think you just have to separate the personal stuff from the professional stuff. And leaving is leaving regardless if he went to LSU or UF.
Okay, but the personal stuff is the whole reason that he said that he was going to make his decision off of. Like, yes, there's one thing to have a professional side of it, and there's one thing to have a personal side of it, but he said, I want to go where my family's happy. And then he picks them up and sticks them in Baton Rouge. Like, you're lying then. You're lying. Because what is there for them? The high school football is better in Florida for Knox. And you know what? In a couple years, let Florida take Knox. He's not going to play under his dad anyway. So Florida's going to take Knox. He's going to be great. And then it's going to be, oh, sorry, you suck. Like, the personal aspect of it was his whole thing. And then he just completely abandoned that. And he went to Oxford, and he said in his documentary, I needed Oxford a lot more than they needed me. I don't think so, Lane. I think you're lying again. Because clearly, that's not the case. Yes, you needed Oxford because, look, you're doing great now. Your image is turned around, but then you just took it and turned it right back to what it is, and that is the literal image if Baton Rouge were a person. You have just turned your image into that, a dumpster. Like, you went and made your whole brand look great again. You made your family happy. You made Ole Miss fans happy. You made all of Hottie Toddy and their, nation and fan base so happy with what they've done this season. And then you turned it into that. Like, it's a complete slap in the face. I don't go to Ole Miss. I don't like Ole Miss. I don't resonate as a Rebel whatsoever. Their little land shark, what is that? You're nowhere near water. I don't care for Ole Miss whatsoever. But I feel bad for that fan base. I feel bad for those. I feel bad for his family. I mean, he's making them live in Baton Rouge. Gross. Like, it just doesn't seem like, and then, okay, but you look at the professional aspect of it. Yeah, he can win at LSU. Guaranteed. The only difference is, I can understand this is like, at Florida, maybe give him like a year, like a season to really start to get things going. That's what it was at Ole Miss. He was 5-5, I think, his first season at Ole Miss. Yeah. And then after that, he started getting things going. At LSU, he can probably start out with a winning season right away, and I can understand that. But the thing is like, you would have gotten, I feel like it would have been so much more enriching for him and his family as a whole. You wouldn't have to separate the professional and the personal if you came to Florida. It would be, you'd win in both aspects. Versus LSU, it's just you. It's just a you thing for me. That's how I feel about it.
So Lane actually just dropped his statement. After a lot of prayer and time spent with family, I made the difficult decision to accept the head coaching position at LSU. I was hoping to complete a historic 6-year run with this year's team by leading Ole Miss through the playoffs, capitalizing on the team's incredible success and their commitment to finish strong, and investing in everything into a playoff run with guardrails in place to protect the program in any areas of concern. My request to do so was denied by Keith Carter, despite the team also asking him to allow me to keep coaching them, so they could better maintain their high level of performance. Unfortunately, that means Friday's Egg Bowl was my last game coaching the Rebels. While I look forward to a new start with a unique opportunity at LSU, I will forever cherish the incredible 6 years I spent at Ole Miss and will be rooting hard for the team to complete their mission and bring home a championship to Oxford. Lane Kiffin. Sorry, he did not say home. Bring a championship to Oxford. Let's make sure he didn't call it home again. Keith Carter, the AD over at Ole Miss, who, I did not envy that guy's position. Tough position to be put in. And look, you can make the argument that everybody put in a tough position by this college football calendar. I think that's a genuine thing they've got to start looking at. No coach, truthfully, should have to choose between coaching in a playoff and go into a new job. You should be able to finish out your season. but the calendar doesn't allow for it. It just doesn't. I do think that Keith Carter probably made the right decision. I would want, if I was a Florida fan and Jon Sumrall was coaching, about to go into a playoff, I'd want a Florida man, and he's been offered a job, and he's going to go coach at Notre Dame or whatever. I would want a Florida man leading my team. I don't want somebody that's abandoned my team, that's leaving, trying to go to a. Not only that, they're trying to go to a rival. He is going to a rival university. He's going to LSU, the Old West rivalry between in the Western Division in the SEC between Ole Miss and LSU is a real thing. And LSU I believe has to travel to Oxford next year, so that'll be quite the homecoming, one might call it, for Lane Kiffin. But we'll wrap up here in a second. But man, y'all, I do want to get your kind of thoughts. You hear that statement? We were actually in the middle of having the discussion when the guy drops it. So, gosh, this is the craziest cycle I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, I think, like you said, this is just craziness going around college football right now. My reaction to that statement is that, like, I don't know. I just feel like you said it. It's hard for a coach to have to make this decision right now. Just the recruiting cycle and everything that is going around with the playoffs and the scheduling and having the recruit and the transfer portal. It's a complete mess that needs to be changed and turned around, and it's got to be fixed, or else this is probably going to happen again in the future. I think Lane Kiffin, he wanted to go to LSU. That's where he wanted to go. Now he's going to be coaching there at LSU. I think it would be hard for him to coach throughout the playoffs, just with everything that's going on. I think that would have been a tough situation. If I was an LSU fan, an Ole Miss fan, I think I might have wanted him to coach for me for the playoffs. I think it would have been, if he's gotten my team this far, and he's a great play caller, and we have a shot at a national championship in football, I want the best chance that I can get with winning my national championship game. I just want the best shot I can get, and I feel like Lane Kiffin would have probably given Ole Miss the best chance to win throughout the playoffs. If you don't think Lane Kiffin would have gave Ole Miss the best chance to win through the playoffs, I don't know what to tell you.
No, I'm with you. I do think Lane Kiffin, without having to be the LSU head coach as well, gives you the best opportunity to win. I don't know that he does when you have to throw that on his plate, because you can't tell me that guy is going to completely shirk his responsibilities of setting himself up to win at LSU. And that's pretty much what he would have to do to finish out this and truthfully be dedicated to what Ole Miss is doing. He would have to put somebody else in charge and hope that they run the team over at LSU the way he wants it run until he can kind of come over. And I don't know how realistic that is. Lauren, you're giving me a look. I gotta know what's going on up there. What are we thinking?
Well, first of all, with his statement, he's saying Keith Carter isn't letting me do this. So your hot yoga buddy is denying your request to coach the team that you're abandoning for your rival. Oops. Like, why would he let you stay? There are
consequences for your actions.
There are consequences for your actions, Lane. And that's a whole lot of BR, Baton Rouge, all right? If you're going to go ahead and take your talents to Baton Rouge and abandon the team that you, have been building for 6 years, oh, no, he's not letting me coach both teams at once. Sucks to suck. You made your decision. And then same thing. Yes, he's the best guy to take them to the playoffs. But that's only if he wasn't also having 1 foot in Baton Rouge, 1 foot in Oxford. You can't, have your cake and eat 8 slices too, because that's exactly what he wants to do. And as a player, from a player perspective, I don't want him coaching us. I fully know that he's abandoning my team. He's going to our rival. He doesn't care about us. Who's to say that he cares about this game right now? He gets a national championship. It's not going to feel nearly as good as if he was still going to be that coach again next season. He doesn't care. He doesn't get to bring that national championship trophy into his office. He doesn't get to carry it off the bus with his players like he did for the Egg Bowl. It doesn't mean the same thing. He doesn't deserve to coach that game. And like I said, as a player, I wouldn't trust a word that came out of his mouth, because he's leaving you. He's abandoning you. He helped you become a good program and a good player, and then he's leaving because he doesn't care. It's like he doesn't care about the program that he built and the framework that he has given this, like all of the city of Oxford. He's taking it and throwing it right into the dumpster fire that LSU is as a town. So he's okay with doing that, but he's not okay with not getting to coach them anymore. If I were that player, if I was any of those players, I would not want him to coach us. And I feel like they all feel that way now.
Well, I'll throw something out there. You mentioned he wanted his cake and wanted to eat it too. it almost feels like he wants his cake and eat it too, and then he wants to burn the bakery down on the way out. That's what to me, that's what it screams, that he doesn't just want to eat his cake. He wants to burn the bakery down when he leaves. I mean, with the kind of stuff that he has tried to strong arm Keith Carter into, well, I'll take my staff with me. I'll start recruiting those players right now and bring them to Baton Rouge too. Yeah, man, I don't know. It just doesn't, that part doesn't sit right with me when you've spent the last year telling everybody how much you loved Oxford and how much you love this program. There's just something about that feels odd to me. Again, I go back to, I don't envy his position. I do feel for Lane Kiffin to have to make this choice based on the college football calendar. The fact that we're letting a calendar dictate this kind of stuff, to me, is ridiculous. Same thing, I feel for Keith Carter, because how do you make that decision? How do you sit there and say, yeah, you go ahead and everybody keeps comparing it. Oh, well, Tulane probably will let Jon Sumrall coach in the playoff, or Eric Morris will probably get to coach if if North Texas makes the playoff. That's a completely different scenario. You're talking about, you're asking a group of 5 coach to turn down a Big 12 job or an SEC job. They're not going to do it. And when are you ever going to get your group of 5 team back in this position? You probably won't. When it comes to Lane Kiffin, you're asking your team, your current school, to let you coach it out, and then you're planning to go to a rival in the same conference? Absolutely not.
Yeah, I think my response to that is this. If the calendar was different and the decision for Lane was made, let's say January 20th after the championship game and everything, Lane Kiffin would still coach that team, and Lane Kiffin would still leave to go to LSU. So the results would still be the same. I know it's not really on him that he's having to leave right now. I don't agree with it. I think he's strengthening the players right now. I don't like the statement that he said with having to get his staff on a plane with him in order for them to coach with him. I don't agree with any of that. But if I'm an Ole Miss fan and I have a shot at a national championship right now, I want the best chance that I can get. And obviously, if Lane has to direct his attention towards LSU, that's going to take a step back a bit. But I don't think it takes as much as a step back as if getting someone else to fill Lane Kiffin's shoes. I think you go from Lane Kiffin being an A+ to going to a B+, but trying to get someone to fill his shoes puts you at a C-. I just think that if the calendar was different and you would be okay with Lane Kiffin coaching your team throughout the playoffs and then leaving for LSU, making that statement after the championship game and whatnot, I think you kind of should be okay with it right now as well.
My outlook on it, my final thoughts is, one, my view on Lane Kiffin has completely, again, it's down to Baton Rouge. It's trash. It's completely bad now. Like I said, I used to love Lane Kiffin, obsessed with him, wanted him to come here, was campaigning, was the real Lane train. I was driving that, all right? I was the conductor of that train. And now I think that his image before he went to Ole Miss is kind of what he's going back to, aside from the fact, he is, sober now. But last thing is, he's going to look bad in purple.
Do you think that Florida dodged a bullet?
No, I don't.
Okay.
Me, I think that Florida needed to hire Lane Kiffin. I think not hiring Lane Kiffin put this program in a situation to where firing Billy Napier is going to turn out as a bust. I feel like if you had Billy Napier and you had the past team and the coaching staff that he had before, and you just filled in as an offensive coordinator to call plays for Billy Napier, this program was where it needed to be. The recruiting was good. The defense was good. All the talent on the offense, Jaden Baugh, DJ Lagway, all the talent was there on offense. You just needed a play caller to get you over the hump. You were in so many competitive games throughout the season with so many top teams. Yeah, I'm saying, okay, I like it. He should have done it in the past, and then I feel like you should let him finish out this year and say, okay, Billy, if you want to keep coaching the Florida Gators, you need to hire an offensive. They did that
last year, and he wouldn't do it.
And he didn't listen because he thinks he's better than the program.
That was the ultimatum they gave him a year ago. They told him, hey, you got to go hire an offensive coordinator. He didn't necessarily do it. I guess he technically did in that he promoted. Gosh, I'm blanking on Russ Callaway. Promoted him to offensive coordinator in name only, but he wasn't going to let him call plays. He didn't hire. They wanted him to hire an offensive play caller, and he didn't do it. And to me, that is 100%. That's on Billy Napier. That's not on the University of Florida. That's not anybody, but that falls squarely at the feet of Billy Napier. He had to go get himself an offensive coordinator that could come in, as Jon Sumrall put it today. It is not optional to get an offensive coordinator that is explosive. It is mandatory. We have to have an explosive offense at the University of Florida. And I'm 100% on board with that part of it. I'll close this out. I don't know that I would call it a dodging of the bullet, because I do think Lane Kiffin was probably the right guy for the job here. But I also think he's probably the right guy for the job in LSU, and probably the right guy for the job at Ole Miss. I think he's a heck of a coach. I think he will have success at LSU, even if he won't look good according to Lauren in purple. But he will have success there. He had success at Ole Miss, would have had success at Florida. I do think that Florida had a pivot. People won't like the pivot in terms of, because it's a group of 5 coach, but they made a pivot to the number 1, number 2, I think is what you called it, Lauren. Everybody wanted that guy if they couldn't get Lane Kiffin. And there were some teams like Auburn who didn't even want to try Lane Kiffin. They were already set. They wanted Jon Sumrall. There are a lot of fan bases that will lay their head down tonight upset that Jon Sumrall is not their head coach. I think this is something we can examine a year from now. I want to see, or even 6 months from now, maybe even a month from now. I want to see what staff he builds out. If he truly goes out and gets an explosive play caller, and he brings in a defensive coordinator at the same level of a Blake Baker, or heck, even the Tulane guy, maybe he is a great. I mean, their defense is great over there. That's what their identity is. They've got a good defense, but they've got to rebuild the image of the Florida Gator offense. I think there will be a lot of people who hope they are proven wrong about Jon Sumrall. I think he's not Billy 2.0. I think we'll learn that pretty quickly, because I think he will give up. He will not go and try to call plays on offense or defense. He's going to go be a head coach. And I think, to Lauren's wish list, I asked her 4 months ago, his passion will bring that. He'll bring that to Gator Nation. So I'm excited to see that. Manuel, Lauren, thank you for joining me today on Sports Lab Overtime. It's always fun to talk some sports with y'all, and we'll be adding a couple more of these videos here on the YouTube page. Make sure you check out WRUF during the week, as we'll have you covered this week. We'll have the live press conference, whenever that may be, with Jon Sumrall introduces the new head coach of the Florida Gators, and we'll have you covered. I believe Kevin said he's going to try to get the Tulane game on Friday, the championship game, put on the air as well. So we'll have that for you, and we'll bring you more content than ever here on WRUF as we move into the Sumrall era at the University of Florida.